Happy Friday. We're here.
Hell's going on?
Apparently not a lot. Nothing going on with Baldwin. So we are sitting here. Folks, I am dying because it's freaking hot in my place. But let me know if you hear a fan noise coming from me. And if so, I'll kill the fan. I want to make sure my sound is okay and it's not too distracting for anyone. This is a Q&A episode. We've talked about putting it out. We were going to do it last week. Then Baldwin came through, or, things dropped. So we're back again. This isn't marked with the initial question, but I do agree. Why is it so hard for people to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons? Great idea. Everybody consider doing that. I appreciate it very, very much. What I would appreciate as well, though, is on this, I want to try to get to a lot of questions. When Mark and I are doing the show, we're trying to keep a flow going and a conversation. So we can't always get to the super chats. We could take this time to actually spend time and, answer chat questions. So if you can, I mentioned earlier in the chat, please preface with the word question, just so I know that this is actually a question for us and not an answer to somebody else or a side conversation, because it can kind of get a little bit confusing. And I will just try to pull as many as I can and go through them. So we'll start off with this. Suits by Hunley and Groubert merch. I'm not sure.
You mean like full suits?
Yeah, we definitely don't have we don't have full suits. We have the merch link down below. And you should be able to see it in the description. No suits involved, though. That's going to have shirts. I don't even know if there's a polo. There might be a polo if you dig into the catalog, maybe, but I don't think there is. Okay, the questions are going to be good, Mark. They're going to be different. All right, here we go. Mark, did you ever sell a naked dog walking?
What does that mean? Sell a naked dog?
Yeah. Did you ever see one?
Did you say see or sell?
It says sell. I don't know.
You're interpreting it as see. You can't say that. The guy may mean sell.
I know. I said I don't know. It's your question.
Why is naked capitalized?
I don't know.
And dog is not capitalized.
I don't know.
But, there's a lot of sleeping dogs. You just have to let them lie. And no, I don't know about selling them, but I've had dogs myself.
Okay. Well, and they're usually naked, unless they're... Can we look into Lizzie Borden and see if she was framed to protect the uncle? That actually came up earlier today in one of my live streams, because we were talking about Halderson, who chopped up his parents and everything. I was like, oh, he's a modern day Lizzie Borden.
What was she on? Crystal meth or something? Why did she do it?
I don't know. I know John Douglas, who's the FBI profiler. I think he actually felt like she was innocent of the crime.
Okay.
I don't know why she did it, didn't do it, or whatever. I mean, the extent of my Lizzie Borden knowledge is what Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her
a chair or something. What happened to her?
She was exonerated. She was found innocent.
Oh, okay.
She lived to an old age, and I think the same house.
Well, who did kill these people then?
Well, I guess they're saying, can we look in to see if the uncle actually did it?
I wouldn't mind looking into that. I don't know anything about it, so yeah.
I'll have to dig up the John Douglas book again, because he put some time into it. He said the very, very famous FBI profiler that Netflix show is based on. The David Fincher or whatever. My brain is fried today, so I can't remember the name of the show, but very, very popular. Baldwin has come unsplendid. Yes.
It's not necessarily a question, though.
Yeah, and Dub, if you don't have money for super chats,
get another job.
That could stink a lot.
Second job.
Oh, and it might stink a little bit, but if you have a question, ask.
Try to get to. You don't have to pay to ask a question.
Goodness. All right. How far in advance do we plan on an episode, not counting Baldwin?
Ooh. Oh, well, that could be months.
Good question.
That could be months.
Yeah.
I mean, Hunley's got a list, so I mean, it takes me a week to get up to speed on an episode, but we've planned it out for a long time. So each one, when you get closer, you got to do a lot of work.
Yep. Can you check your mic, Mark? It sounds like you're coming in through the wrong way. Yeah, you're not coming through that. Tap it. Mm-mm. So you're coming in through your laptop microphone. Yeah. While he's checking that, it's really, it does fluctuate in a lot of ways because we kind of have a list of shows, and then we're like, okay, we really need to do this or do that, and then we kind of narrow it down. And then depending on what it was, like LBJ, it took us months to actually go ahead and do something on that because it's so large. Same thing with Lee Harvey Oswald. That one is going to be really, really challenging. There's so much information there. So we kind of have to gear up to it.
Okay.
In a lot of ways. Tap it again. Yeah, you're still not coming through it.
Okay.
Great times. Let's see. What's your mic setting? Okay, I don't even see. It's not showing me what mic you have. Nope. I mean, they can hear you, but I hope it doesn't sound too bad to everybody, but it definitely is the wrong mic. Okay. Everybody has this question. Will Baldwin have to go to a criminal trial? I think we've pretty much consistently throughout this have felt that it's unlikely. I don't know. I think there's so much confusion and there's so many problems. I'm not sure if anybody's actually going to be charged criminally or not, because there's just too many variables, and it's odd because it would seem to be a pretty simple thing. Okay, somebody has the gun, it goes off, she dies. How do you get the gun? Okay, move on. But there's the added question of, there it is.
Testing.
That's it. You got it. Look at that. You sound glorious. So, what do you think, Baldwin? Going to criminal trial? Mark. Baldwin. Baldwin, criminal trial? Will he be going? Now I wonder if Mark can hear me. Mark, can you hear me? All right. Dude, Mark,
what?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Your mic's good. Mic is fixed. Oh, great. He knocked off the camera. And knocked himself off. Okay, cool. I guess I'll go ahead and carry this. Let me go back here. Next one. Thank you, Lynn Job. I know that like button is tricky. I'll try to answer these and then maybe go back to them. I'm not really sure. How does it feel? Hello.
Oh,
Mark.
All right.
I hear you fine. Do you hear me? Oh, this is great. Okay. Thank you. I don't know if anybody's really obsessed with us, but I appreciate that. I think everybody is obsessed with Mark. Mark is definitely the star of the show. Is Mark also a PI, and is he partnered with other writers? I will have to go back to that. I don't believe he is a PI. I'm pretty sure he has partnered with other writers. Let's see. What do I think of OJ, and is he guilty? The whole OJ thing. It's interesting. Barnes feels like that he's not guilty. I had OJ's manager on, Norm Pardo. Had him on a couple times. There are a couple of my best performing shows on my personal channel, Eric Hunley. If anybody ever wants to know when I reference an interview with somebody, it's probably going to be on Eric Hunley. And Norm Pardo, he was OJ's manager and recorded like every conversation he ever had with OJ, has all kinds of tape. And he feels that OJ actually, well, I don't know how to put it, because there's a serial killer by the name of Glenn Rogers, I recall. And this serial killer, who is real, he's on death row in Florida right now. You can go find him online, his last chase when they finally caught him and everything. He apparently worked for OJ and Nicole. And this is, it gets crazier. Apparently was tied into OJ and Robert Kardashian. And it's a question of whether Kardashian wanted Nicole Simpson to die.
What's this?
And yeah, somebody's asking about OJ, and I'm buying time while you're fixing your microphone.
Oh, I went and got a sandwich. What are you talking about?
And your microphone's screwed. Don't do anything. You had the microphone perfect, and you're just staring at me like I'm off, and you couldn't hear.
What is this about now?
Okay, I was just talking about OJ. I've had OJ's manager on. He was saying that Glenn Rogers actually killed Nicole Brown Simpson.
Who's Glenn
with OJ. Oh, he's a serial killer in death row in Florida.
What are they? It's like a tag team or something?
They were there supposedly to hassle her, pick up some coke or whatever it is, and then things went out of hand. They killed Ron Goldman, who apparently was really a badass, actually. Ron Goldman, I guess, is like a multi-level black belt in karate and things like that. And they had it out, and Glenn Rogers cut him up and killed him. And then later, like it wasn't immediately later, Nicole Simpson came out, and Glenn Rogers killed her. So his premise is that OJ was there. He's not innocent, but he didn't do it. And I don't know. It's all confusing. So, Barnes says he's not guilty. I've heard that. I've heard the Glenn Rogers thing, both from his manager and another, John Eckberg, an author that I interviewed. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back up and find a couple questions that exclusively are yours. And I started off with the whole thing of, do you think that Baldwin will have to go to a criminal trial? I was saying probably not. I don't know if we've changed on that.
Well, I just want to say that Hutchins, the girl who was shot.
Yes.
There was an article you sent me today from the Telegraph, right? And the article talks about her family being trapped in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to address that briefly because it's obviously another piece of war propaganda that has nothing to do with anything except milking the Hutchins killing. They've had since October to come to their daughter's funeral. And now in the month of March, they're now claiming they can't leave because of the conflict in Kiev. This is being done by the British media to merely link the two stories. You know, keep in mind, Eric, that she came out of the Soviet Union as a war propagandist with the collapse of the Soviet Union and worked for the Daily Mail as an anti-Soviet propagandist, if you remember the story in October. The only reason I'm mentioning it is because the Telegraph is now using her tragic killing as part of their anti-war propaganda, anti-Russian propaganda, which I thought was a fairly low blow. But to get into the meat of the story, I don't know about these questions, but to get into the meat of the story, it went so far as to quote Hutchins' husband's demand for a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Now, keep in mind, this is a Clintonista. That's why I'm bringing this up, to show you the insane political nature of this story that I was mocked about in October for possibly suggesting skullduggery in her death, and that her father was a Soviet nuclear sub-commander and eventually would come, I believed, at least to the funeral of his own daughter. I mean, people come and go in October, November, December from Kiev to LAX every single day. For whatever reason, and we don't know the reason, and it might involve a family involved in intelligence, as many of our episodes have shown. This guy has not shown up. Now it's March 18th, and the British papers are saying he can't possibly show up because of Putin. And I'm thought, this is a new low. And then Hutchins chimes in, the
Matthew, yeah,
the widow, asking for a no-fly zone. So I'm just wondering, this is clearly being milked as propaganda against the Russians. But I thought it was really a new low for the British tabloids. Really a new low, Eric.
Well, it is pretty funny how we're going to converge the world event and war to Alec freaking Baldwin. I mean,
if you go back to my original contention that, here's a woman who was doing documentaries for a pro-Soviet guy named Denton for the BBC,
sure,
sex slaves in the cellar,
yep.
As I implied originally, it could have been retribution for whatever she was involved in against the Soviets back in the day, Eric. You know what I mean? And the anti-Russian stuff, the pro-Soviet stuff is when her father worked for the Soviets. The anti-Russian stuff happens when she becomes a quote-unquote tabloid propagandist for the Daily Mail and some of the other publications that we uncovered when we originally did the story back in October is the reason I'm bringing it up now. And the fact that they're mentioning now that her father can't simply come here now because of the Ukrainian conflict is, of course, laughable. He had 4.5 months to come to his daughter's funeral and at least come and see his grandchild. And now the grandmother was quoted in the article. Olga was quoted in the article saying that they can't come here because of the conflict. But the kicker is that Sussman, who is Clinton's lawyer, has been indicted by Durham, and Matthew Hutchins' firm represents Michael Sussman, a lawyer who's been indicted by John Durham. So for him to all of a sudden,
is it his current firm or previous firm? Because I get confused. He has so many firms.
The previous firm, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
The lawyer that Sussman was for the Clintons and also for the phony Russia hoax.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing's come full circle, Eric.
Yep, and we'll eventually get back to Lee Harvey Oswald.
Eventually, what I'm trying to say is, people say, well, that's conspiratorial because you can't prove how that bullet got into the gun to kill her. Did Putin put that bullet in the gun? Well, let me ask the people who are Russian haters and anti-Putin people: do you put it past Putin at this point that he was involved in the assassination of Hutchins? I think there's a lot of anti-Putin people who would love to have that event happen. And who knows, maybe it did happen. I don't know how that bullet got in the gun. And apparently nobody else does. We all know how the gun got fired. We've been down that road a million times. We know who these players are in the game. The one mystery of the entire event, right, Eric, is who put the live round.
Source of the bullet.
The source of the bullet, right. Yeah. And, simply because I can't solve that does not make it a murder, because I can't solve that one part of the riddle. If we use those standards, the 60 years of information we gathered since 1963 in the Kennedy killing would have been for nothing. You know what I mean? Like in 1963, we knew absolutely nothing about the assassination. And the people who started to look into it were mocked as conspiracy theorists. They were repeatedly mocked in an attempt to, have their lives destroyed, like Mark Lane and Sylvia Magers and some of the other original JFK researchers almost had their lives destroyed by the FBI and the CIA. So I don't know how this bullet got in the gun. We may never know how the bullet got in the gun.
All right. So to keep going on it, how does it feel knowing that thousands of us are basically obsessed with you guys? And I said it's not me, it's you. They're obsessed with you, Mark, and your coordinated pocket square and tie, and you look so dapper.
I don't know if they're coordinated. The point of the matter is it's show business, and you got to put on a good show for show business. It's part business and part show is the answer to that question.
All right. This is one I don't know. Are you also a PI? And have you partnered with other writers for investigative articles?
I'm not a PI. I've worked with PIs on various investigative articles, if that answers the question.
And other writers? You ever team up on articles?
Let me think. Not really. I mean, you end up writing with the editors. So, I mean, it's not like you're doing it yourself because eventually you turn it in and there's other writers, quote unquote, who are the editors, let's say. You know what I mean? So indirectly you are. But in terms of two people doing an article, it's usually a pain in the ass.
I can imagine.
Yeah, two people writing anything is a pain in the ass.
Well, and I'm sure it usually breaks down to one person doing all the grunt work and the other
Right.
one's
Yeah,
the bigger name taking the byline or whatever.
Writers are basically lazy people. And if you can stay in bed while the other guy's doing something, you will. Now, you know, we'll talk about Animal House. Those three writers, what screenwriters sometimes do is they'll do entire drafts and then trade them off to the other guy.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. That's almost like cross editing each
Yeah.
other's works in a weird way.
Right.
But then that also
writing,
gives one voice, right? Because everybody's hitting it. It's
yeah, it becomes really problematic. I don't know how it works, and I've never done it. I mean, I've been rewritten, you know, many times, but I'm not involved with it anymore. You know, when I wrote The Recruit with Colin Farrell and Al Pacino, the next writer came on, and then he was replaced. And it's not like you coordinated. You know what I mean? Just your draft is turned in, and then the next guy takes a shot at it. You know.
Okay. When is the Abbie Hoffman show? I don't know yet.
It's coming up. It's moving up, and it's like a YouTube algorithm. It moves up on the side, and then
yeah, and it depends on demand too. Like if it's like okay, everybody keeps bugging us about it, then it might shift.
Well, also sometimes there's something in the news that moves things up the logarithm. You know, moves it closer to the top.
All right, I already asked about or did the OJ, and thank you, Knucklefist, a super chat that is really awesome and appreciated.
He's consistent, Knucklefist. I like this guy.
Yeah, hell yeah. He's a bastard son of the hippie-free love movement. He suspects you are his daddy.
What?
Were you in Chicago, September or October of 1968?
No, absolutely not.
That's one event you finally missed.
I'll tell you. Which one? The protest?
Yeah. I mean, you managed it at Woodstock, for God's sake, and then Woodstock again.
Wayne Kramer, who was there. There was keep in mind there was a bunch of bands that were supposed to play a la Woodstock. Every single name band quit at the last, and there were some huge names. Every single band quit except for the MC5 and Wayne Kramer, and they played until the riot started. And Wayne Kramer brought with him hallucinogenic honey, which is this legendary. I've never sampled it, but it's LSD mixed into honey, and everybody was given hallucinogenic honey and stuff, unfurled after that.
That is one scary alliteration, by the way.
Yeah.
Hallucinogenic honey. Good.
So they played. I don't know how many songs they got in, and Wayne doesn't remember, but a riot started. The MC5 was on the back of a flatbed truck, flatbed thing as a stage. And then all hell broke loose.
And this is Kick Out the Jams MC5?
Yes, Kick Out the Jams MC5. That's right.
Okay. All right. This is a good question. What subject would you like to tackle that you haven't so far? This is a good Mark question. I don't have one.
On the show, you mean? On this show?
Yeah. I think so.
On this show?
Yeah.
What did we do already? Did we do the Moonies?
Yes. Mark and the Moonies.
Yeah, we could do Scientology. There's a lot of stuff there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I could. Yeah. And I've got some interviews with Scientology people too.
Right. It's always a problem because they could be very, very aggressive, but I've got some good Scientology stuff. Yeah, I guess the Scientology stuff. We'll have to do that because of
how Jolly West made the cut.
Jolly West is in, but I mean the Scientology one is interesting because they came to me to wear a wire against my boss, Maddie Simmons, because we had done, just to give you a teaser on this, we had done, before I got to Lampoon, they had done a piece called Diuretics, and it was a takeoff on Dianetic. And they were happy about it. So I had already left Lampoon. I was running my MTV magazine. And this guy showed up who was their enforcer. And we'll go into it in the episode. He's an ex-LAPD cop who worked for them. And he asked me if I wanted to wear a wire and get revenge on Maddie Simmons because of whatever reason. I guess he thought we had a falling out, but we hadn't. And he was a Scientologist, ex-LAPD cop. So that was never going to happen. But the guy was legendary, and we'll get into it in the episode. So, yeah, he was their muscle. Let me just put it that way. Fast, he carried a 38 and was not afraid to use it.
All right. Oh, and thank you, Pablo. Mindhunter is the name of that show that I couldn't remember.
Mindhunter.
Excellent show on Netflix. It really was.
Right. Oh, is that the guys who study serial killers?
Yeah. And they cast these people as a serial killer. I mean, just spot on. They were really creepily similar.
Mm-hmm.
So really good show. But anyway, it's based on John Douglas and his life. Oh, interesting. Yeah, this might be one. I don't know. A lot of people have mentioned it from time to time. Do we have any thoughts about who may have killed Bob Crane from Hogan's Heroes?
I think it was Greg Kinnear. I really do at this point. I mean, where's Greg Kinnear? No one knows where he is. Autofocus was a great film.
Greg Kinnear was he's the one who said that he was like a CIA.
No. That was the guy from the Gong Show.
Chuck Barris.
That was Chuck Barris.
Okay.
Greg Kinnear was an actor, and the movie was Autofocus, is what he's referring to. And I don't know who killed him. I thought it was a homosexual thrill killing, actually.
Okay.
But I'd have to look more deeply.
All right. Let's see. What do you know about the Lookout Mountain base off Laurel Canyon and Dave McCowan's book on it?
That's not, dude. I mean, this has been overdone. I mean, there's a couple of things back there. I've gone back there. You know what I mean? It's it's even linked to Jolly West in a weird way, because Oscar Janiger, who was another psychiatrist from West LA, who gave acid to everyone in the 50s and 60s, but I don't really think there's much to it anymore. I mean, there was supposed to be, I think at one point, a rocket base back there, or a missile silo. You know what I mean? A nuclear missile silo, but it was abandoned.
Okay. And you know what? This is actually an important question. And we both, have you figured out the whole subscription thing? No, we haven't, because there need to be more. And we depend on you guys.
Investigator to get to the bottom of this. I'll tell you that much.
I'm telling you, and you guys can help us just get this resolved. There should be a whole lot more. There really should.
I don't know. It sounds fishy to me.
All right. What is Mothman?
Oh, well, Mothman is a creature that flies around with red eyes, and apparently was linked to the destruction of this bridge in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, I think in 1967, causing the collapse of the bridge. Some sort of negative energy, mega force of death. It's been cited in various forms, like the Red Devil in New Jersey in the woods. I mean, there's various connotations of what the Mothman actually is. It may be some shape-shifting. I'm not really sure.
We plan to solve it in May.
Yeah, we'll get to the bottom of this.
we'll do Scooby-Doo.
I don't know. I know John Keel. I knew John Keel from the old days, but it was more about UFOs with John Keel, and I didn't know what the Mothman thing was with him. I knew him as a ufologist, so we're going to look into the Mothman thing. I mean, there's a Mothman museum down there. There's a lot of Mothman stuff. A bunch of authors live there who have written about the Mothman, besides John Keel. So I wanted to interview a couple of the authors of books who reside in that area. That may help.
By the way, that's going to be May. I mean, I don't know how much of our audience is in the whole Charleston, West Virginia area, but if there are a significant number, we can possibly do some kind of meetup.
Is that Tim Pool country? Doesn't he live there?
Tim Pool is in Maryland on the border of West Virginia. I don't know. He might be a couple hours away. I'm not really completely certain, but okay. May 16th, 17th time frame. Actually, a little earlier, 15, 16 time frame, maybe the Saturday. We're going to be there. So if people are in the area, just let us know in the comments and things, and especially on Locals. Be a great time to follow us on Locals, and I'd love to meet anybody or everybody. That would be, obviously awesome.
OJ's killer is invited too if he wants to meet up.
Yeah, as long as he comes unarmed with cash.
Right, the OJ killer.
Yes. I don't know the rest of this. Would you consider doing a blues gig in
what?
I don't know.
I've been in blues bands before, so yeah. If it's a blues band, I mean, sure, I'll bring my harps and we'll jam. But I mean, is that the question? I guess
that is quite literally what I have.
I'll bring my big nose amp, and it's battery powered, so we could do it outside. I don't care about that. I've got a bullet mic, and we could cook. Yeah, we'll cook.
All right. Question from Mark: How common are STD outbreaks among celebrities?
I don't think anybody has an STD outbreak anymore because there's so many treatments for it. But like I said last week, I believe that Jack Ruby went insane from some STD outbreaks since he was getting penicillin every single month. And of course, ironically or not ironically, the guy who he worked for died 13 years earlier in I think Joliet prison.
No, Alcatraz.
Oh, in Alcatraz. Okay.
Yeah. Famously, it was not that long before Alcatraz was closed.
Right. Okay. So he died of syphilis, going insane from syphilis. So it's not so crazy that Jack Ruby may have. Well, we know he contracted STDs, and we know that he was taking penicillin monthly. I just happen to think that they may have cut him off when he was in jail to the penicillin.
Sure, it didn't have the budget for it. It was probably still patented at the time. It probably cost more money then than it is now.
Right. And I think that may have led to his insanity, untreated syphilis or gonorrhea. I mean, it's just a theory. But how ironic that his ex-boss died of syphilis in prison. So, I mean, only 13 years prior, 14 years, that Alphonse Capone dies of syphilis.
Well, I'm sure they both got around. Did you have any dealings with Sammy the Bull or any of his associates when he was working in New York City?
Okay.
So that'd be a Gambino family. I don't know.
If you are from New York, you don't fuck around. Oh, sorry. You really don't play around with these guys. It's just like a built-in thing. I have had some. Okay. When
some bent nose encounters.
It's funny because we used to go to Jones Beach all the time, and we would take these Boston Whaler motorboats out and cruise around and stuff like that. And we went around one time, a bunch of us on the boat, and because Gambino had a house on a little bluff near Jones Beach, and we thought it would be cute to just sail over to his beach and just see what's going on. So we were like 17, and we sailed over with the motorboat, and there were these guys up on the cliff with machine guns. And we went, okay, turn back, and we just turned it around and went back. But I did remember the story of being in Mary Lou's restaurant on 9th Street in New York, and that was owned by it was a mob place. It was owned by Tomasino Barada and Mary Lou Barada, and they were wonderful. But the Gambino crime family actually, I think, owned the place. And Jack Nicholson showed up one summer, and he wanted to learn about the mob. And Tommy took him out to the Gambino weekly sit-down crime meeting, and he sat there as an invitee of Tommy. And this is when Jack was working on a film or about to research a film called Prizzi's Honor. And his whole voice is Tommy Barada's voice. It's kind of funny for us to watch it because he's doing Tommy Barada. And in the movie, there's a opera singer. There's a little cameo by an opera singer, and they introduce the great opera singer from Italy, Tomasino Barada, and it's him. And he comes out, and it's dubbed in Italian, and he sings an aria. But the story is that Nicholson went out with Tommy, and he sat there for an hour and was so fascinated he didn't want to leave. And Tommy started tugging.
Get on.
Tommy started tugging on his jacket to get the hell out. And they didn't know who Jack Nicholson was, the other mobsters. They didn't know. They just asked him if this movie is going to make fun of us or what's the deal. And Jack wanted to stay all day, according to Tommy, and they had to get him out of there. So, yeah. But as for dealing with the mob, you really try not to, because it's a weird thing. They have a sense of humor, but you never know when you go too far with them. And for me personally, I just don't. I'd rather not find that line.
Like the Joe Pesci and the Goodfellas
Thing. Yeah. You don't know that line with them because they have such abstract senses of humor. You know, they could appear to be normally funny. Paulie Walnuts. Paulie Walnuts, who was in
Sopranos. He's a real mobster.
Told me a great story. I did 2 films with Paulie Walnuts. Don't ask me why, but I did 2 films with Paulie Walnuts. So he was in a bar, and this bar he used to go to, he used to run a tab. And that day there was a replacement bartender. It was in the middle of the afternoon. And he ran a tab, and the bartender, a young kid, came over to him. This was like during the day. And he said, "Here's your tab, sir." And he says, I have a tab. And he says, "Well, I'm on the job for today only. Could you please pay?" And the guy says, "No, I'll put it on my tab." So this verbal argument happens. And Paulie leaves and comes back an hour later with a baseball bat and just starts smashing the guy's skull in with a baseball bat in broad daylight in the bar. Unfortunately, he didn't realize that by the time he left, the time he came back, 2 off-duty New York City cops were sitting at the bar having a beer, and he was immediately arrested and sent to Sing Sing, where he did about 5 or 6 years on this story that he told me. And that was his experience in Sing Sing. And I went, oh, my God, that's crazy. But then here he was in this movie, and he lived with his mother in Brooklyn. Paulie Walnuts. So, I mean, they're really odd. Let me just put it that way. You try not to get too close.
That is crazy. All right. So this is just a statement, which I do appreciate. The whole JFK episodes were my favorite series, and the research was noteworty. That's all Mark. Really, really awesome stuff.
There's a lot more of them coming because we're going to do
Ruth Payne.
We're going to do Clay Short, Payne, George DeMoran Schultz. We're going to get into, obviously, a 3-part Oswald. And we're going to get into each of the different characters. General Walker is one of my favorites. I got stuff on Edwin Walker, one of the greatest characters of all times. He almost launches a nuclear attack in Berlin with small Davy Crockett nuclear weapons. He wants to take Berlin and is removed by JFK from his command as a general in Berlin. And that begins the General Walker saga, which is going to be a great one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm not sure, this came in at 5:38. When does the show start? There's some people in there.
My microphone works. That's when it starts. I don't know.
You know what I think is? I think there's some confusion in there. We did label the show Q&A with Mark and Eric. We didn't say it's a Baldwin show. So this is the show, or just answering questions from people. And so if there's any, confusion about that, like let's say you came in late or whatever, we're at 610 now.
More about Baldwin then. I don't care. What this Soviet link to this storyline, and right. I find to be fascinating.
Which we went into earlier, definitely. I've got a ton of questions.
Time she was not doing her nails, you would have heard my entire soliloquy about Putin possibly killing the cinematographer. I'm not going to repeat it because you got here late. Try to be here on time next time. You'll hear stuff about Baldwin. Next question.
All right. We've already answered this earlier. Go ahead and look back. We don't know OJ guilty, not guilty, and I don't know why Barnes doesn't think he's
in the news today or something. What's the deal?
He's a perennial favorite.
Oh,
okay. Are we worried about the environment in case the big bomb gets used? Sure. After all the thousands and millions of people die, we will worry about the environment. Okay.
Oh, is that what he's asking about? I put this phony headline on Twitter last week. New York Times final headline. It says world destroyed by nuclear war.
Mm-hmm.
It says women and minorities particularly hit hard.
Well, there was the other headline that was from Not the Bee, whereas the Atlantic, where it was quite literally, they said we're going to put the bee out of business. They said, aside from all the mass death, experts are worried about the environment should a nuclear bomb go off.
Yeah, these people are insane. Let me tell you something. I lived through the Cuban Missile Crisis in New York, and my parents had the bags packed, and they were white as sheets. Everyone in New York was. We were scared shitless, and we had our bags packed. And I was a kid, obviously, but we had come back from the Catskills in September, and this was October. My mother packed up everything else, was white as a sheet, and everyone in New York, I've never seen anything like it in my life, because these are pretty harsh people. We're scared shitless. And we were all leaving to go back to the Catskills. And people don't remember that. And if this thing goes any further, we may have to revisit that situation, because they've been through it before. And for the Soviets at the time, it was a win-win situation, because they had missiles pointed down their throats in Turkey. And the exchange that Khrushchev was able to, negotiate was the removal of missiles from Cuba with the missiles of Turkey. And that was the secret deal that was done. It is not unlike where we are right now with this saber rattling. I mean, you can only push a nuclear power so far before they have to react. Because as we learned in the Cuban Missile Crisis, Khrushchev had generals, and so did JFK. And JFK's generals were just as crazy as Khrushchev's generals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Curtis LeMay, bombs away Curtis LeMay, was telling Kennedy to launch a first strike nuclear attack at Cuba and the Soviet Union simultaneously. And this is from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I mean, these were not crackpots on Fox News. This was his own staff, military staff. And all of them would vote every other day to launch a nuclear strike against Cuba and to take out their Cuban missile, their nuclear missiles. It's, as I said to you last week, it would not be that far-fetched if Russian nuclear subs threatened Seattle and San Francisco with a 72-hour warning to evacuate those cities and come down the Bering Strait on the west coast of the United States.
Because they go anywhere. Their subs are out there everywhere. We have no idea.
Right. I mean, they don't even have to be there for the threat to be effective. I believe that he's going to have to, at some point, scare the shit out of the American people to get them off his back. Because how far can you push a nuclear power, Eric? You know what I mean? He's sitting on tens of thousands of nuclear missiles, nuclear subs, and he's being slapped around like some drunken wench in a bad 40s movie. I mean, at some point, the guy's going to react to this. And I thought, as I said to you last week, one of the ways that might be effective for him is to threaten two cities on the West Coast.
Which, by the way, everybody, we are not supporting this idea.
Oh, no,
no, I want to put it out there because it's like there's this narrative going. It's like if you say anything at all.
I lived through the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I know how terrifying that was and how effective, I'm trying to explain, it was to the Soviet-United States relationship. The effectiveness of that as a political tool was enormous, because not only did they put an embargo around Cuba, they took the missiles out of Cuba and they got what they wanted, the Soviets, which was the missiles out of Turkey. And
I remember duck and cover too. And all this is very, very, very real. So, okay, Mark, were you at National Lampoon when they wrote Foreigners Around the World? Funniest thing ever.
I think that was in the early 80s, or late 70s. I was not. I don't think I was. Maybe I was. Who remembers? If I could remember Lampoon, you think I'd be here today? We did a lot of drugs. I mean, if we were late on a deadline, there were substances we had to take to make the deadline. Let me put it that way.
All right. Did we ever cover the Brian Laundrie case? I talked about it a little bit because I'm friends with the behavior panel on my channel, Eric Hunley. We've never covered it, and it's kind of outside whatever we do, the Brian Laundrie, Gabri Petito case. Well, here you go. Have somebody to help you. Edward Joyner wants to be your tech support guy.
Edward Joyner. Is he related to Mario Joyner? Used to be at MTV.
I'm not sure.
Black stand-up comic.
Not sure. And Taylor Ray wants to get the Verizon slide in there from our tech troubles. Can you hear me now?
Oh, I see. That's funny. What else do you say? Can you hear me now? Is there some other thing?
I don't know. Well, I mean, they did a good job by capturing that and making it, essentially buying and owning it. It's funny. Oh, and Pablo, what a glorious shit show. Okay.
Itself or
probably our technical issues. There's other comments. Input mic, output speaker.
I'm a baby boomer. I don't know. I don't know anything about this stuff. All I know is the stories. That's my one superpower. I don't know how these other things work. I wore a Superman costume underneath my clothes.
Wow, this shows how far back I am. I mean, that was what 30 minutes ago or so.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Can Mark think of someone we would know Hollywood that he knows personally that as a person's not like they are presented in the media? Probably a lot of them.
Person is not like they are. No, almost all of them. Wait a minute. It's not like I will go with all of them. I'm going to say most of them.
Yeah, and I can never push you because I don't know your relationship. So he can't really discuss his relationships with different people.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, you look at Entertainment Tonight, and it's like you go, "Wow, what planet is that on?" Because nothing could be further than the truth of what you see on those shows like Entertainment Tonight. They are carefully crafted by the PR people of those people, and are nothing like the people they're depicting. It's kind of funny.
All right. What was Mark's biggest surprises during one of his researches? And keep it to one, Mark. I know you've got a bunch.
Researches.
I'm sure something you expected one way and it turned out to be completely different would be a good way to look at that. Or
turned out completely different. Oh, there's a lot of them. I mean, just trying to think. Yeah, you go in with you always have a notion of what's going to happen, and then it turns out that somebody's a criminal. Some normal person that you think is normal turns out to be a crook, and it's always the guy you never think is a crook, because apparently, especially out here, they come off as the non-crookiest person you can imagine. It's almost like a tell, Eric, that the person seems so normal and straight and honest that they turn out to be the corrupt person.
Okay. I would know this. When you do the show on Abbie Hoffman, I know that Pete Townshend hit him over the head with his guitar at Woodstock.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, I have a recording of it, so we're going to use the audio. Eric's Eric's all into it now.
Yeah, I didn't care before at all. Finally. No, I cared that Viva Fry is becoming Abbie Hoffman. That was funny.
I have the audio now, which I used to use in performance when I had my spoken word band. I would do a piece on Abbie Hoffman called "Welcome to America," Abbott Howard Hoffman, and in that piece, I would use the tape recording. And what Abbie did was he rushed the stage while the Who was tuning up. Abbie had been operating at the festival doing various things, and he was not happy. He had tried to shake down Michael for money for leftist causes, and Michael didn't want to give him any money. So Abbie had some concessions from Michael about what to have at the festival. They had tables with literature and news items and books and stuff for sale, and a bunch of other stuff. But Abbie rushed the stage as he's referring to here, when they were tuning up the Who, and he yelled into the microphone, "This is a pile of shit," while John Sinclair is rotting in prison, which was true. And I'm a close friend of John Sinclair's also, oddly enough. John Sinclair was in prison for 10 years for 2 joints. And John Lennon put together a tour called 10 for 2 to get John Sinclair out of prison. Actually wrote a song called John Sinclair. John Lennon played in Toronto with the Plastic Ono Band at a festival up there, and eventually got John Sinclair out of prison because of the notoriety of John Lennon. But in regards to Abbie, when he yelled, "This is a pile of shit," while John Sinclair rots in prison, Pete Townshend literally stabbed him in the neck, like speared him with the top of the guitar that he was tuning up. So this guy is correct about that. He kind of jabbed him in the neck with the guitar, Eric.
Wow. Sounds insane.
Abbie was on acid, by the way, at the same time.
Of course. Let me see. What does Mark consider as the most unexplained death during the golden years old Hollywood?
Unexplained death. Unexplained death. Well, just even recently. I mean, here's a
Bob
question.
Saget.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many Bob Sagets over the years. Not megastars, but people of notoriety in Hollywood who have died. And they just eventually people give up and just go like, what happened to Bob Saget? I don't know. He died. He fell down. Nobody really knows. There's a lot of those out here, where you don't really know what happened.
Elliott Smith, sort of.
Elliott Smith. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of Elliott Smith. There's a lot of Bob Sagets. And it's weird because it's a big city, but it's a small city. And then you have forces covering up these deaths who like Bob Saget's wife. Right? She doesn't want any investigation or any autopsy or anything. If Bob Saget worked at McDonald's, right, you think his wife would say, no, I can't have an autopsy? Of course not. It's simply because of fame.
Sure.
So I mention that as to why we don't get to the bottom of these situations. Here's his wife saying, I don't want an autopsy. I don't want anything, rest in peace, Bob Saget, whatever. The bottom line is we don't get to the bottom of it. And that's Hollywood, Jake. Forget about it.
Okay, are we coming to Santa Fe? Maybe we can find you a blues gig or something. If we ever get the money to, I would love to travel. I'd love to meet people. I'd love to do live shows, but we got some growing to do. Back to that subscription button question, folks. If we get a lot more of that happening.
Is this another gig I have to play in Santa Fe now? Another blues gig, or is this the same one from before?
I'm not sure. It's Road Dogg with a cute avatar.
Okay.
And then this is a good one. America's Untold Stories. Is the title inspired by the untold history of the United States?
Yes.
Yeah, it definitely is influenced.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see. So is this supposedly badass? Oh, so yes, we've talked about that her father did not make it to her funeral. Yeah. We question it because there are flights coming back. We're not going to go into it. We did talk about it before.
Well, the reason I'm mentioning it is because it lends credence to the fact that this is an intelligence family, as we've seen with many of these families. Maybe he can't come here. Maybe he can't leave the Ukraine, or he'll be whacked because of previous stuff, that his anti-Soviet stuff. I don't know. The point I'm trying to make is it's not normal. It's not normal. Nothing about this case is normal. If we can, the whole thing with the focusing on Baldwin is fine, but you got to pull back a little bit and look at the bigger picture here. There's a lot of other weird things involved in this killing. It's not just Alec Baldwin. There's a lot of stuff involved here.
Right. And when we talked about for a while before, and also finding the dots, episode 3 of the Baldwin series, definitely watch that.
Oh, is that the one where we talked about this?
Yes. We go through all the connections and everything with Barnes too. Is the Skull and Bones Society still functioning, and how maybe, probably. I don't know.
Probably,
Let's see.
I don't know.
Another on the Baldwin, but very quick answer on this. It doesn't matter about his age. This happened before now.
Read the question.
Is Hutchins' father under 60? If so, males 18 to 60 are banned from leaving Ukraine. No, this is before all this happened.
Right.
They were banned in October, in November, in December, in January, in February.
He could have come back and forth 50 times already.
Yes.
He did not leave the Ukraine from the death of his own daughter. If nobody finds this to be bizarre, I can't help you. I mean, he could have flown to LAX on any given day and gone to her funeral, for God's sake. There's something more to this story. And the wife, the grandmother of the boy. I mean, come on. I mean, you're talking about a family with a lot of money, the Hutchins family, a lot of money. He could have flown them in a private jet to the funeral, Eric.
Agreed. Two pops heard. Could there have been another gun? I don't know. It is a confusing scene. The next one definitely up, and maybe not them specifically, but how about a show on the Weather Underground and their legacy in today's politics? We did talk about the professors.
Yeah, the professors. Bernardine Dorn, and Bill Ayers. I mean, all of those people. And we'll touch in a little bit about the Abbie Hoffman thing. All those people were wealthy elites. The difference between them and Abbie Hoffman is which is why Abbie's a hero of mine and they're not. is because these are sons and daughters of corporate elites. And Abbie was a middle-class Jewish guy from Worcester, Massachusetts. They actually turned their backs on Abbie when he was in the underground on the lam from the FBI. He went and met with them and tried to see if they would help him in the underground, and they told him to go F himself, clearly demonstrating the class structure of the left. And that's the important thing to remember about the Weather Underground, is the incredible class structure that they kept enforced against people like Abbie Hoffman and others who were legitimate, protesters and legitimate radicals. They came, I don't know what Bill Ayers, I think Bill Ayers' father or the other guy's father was the head of Con Edison in Chicago. They all came from wealthy corporate families, Eric. But Bernadine Dorn was the one who made the sign of the fork, and she suggested that we eat our parents with the sign of the fork. We kill our parents and eat them, and that came from the Mansons. But she used it as a political tool.
Of course she did. Boho Explorer has been a regular, and it's for me. Have I been to Bob Evans' house? And if so, specifically the basement, wink, wink. No.
Bob Evans, the producer, Robert Evans?
I don't know. I don't know that I've ever been
the producer.
I've never been to Bob Evans' house.
I've never been to his house. I'd like to go to his. He's dead now, but I would have liked to have gone. He had a really spectacular movie night, from what I have heard.
Oh, she did mean you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I figured that.
I was like, no, believe me, anything interesting going on is going to be Mark. That's just pretty much a given.
Bob Evans, could be.
I read his autobiography.
Great documentary also about the kid stays in the picture, I think is the name of the book.
Yes, really good stuff. Ziggy Shrugs. Ziggy is awesome. Ziggy is the one who designed that up there.
Oh, I love that.
Ziggy also designed, let me see, solo myself. This right over here.
That's great. That's fantastic.
So Ziggy does some really, really neat work. But anyway, how many subscribers do we have now on Locals? And I believe it's 4,800 or so that are following us. And I think it's 600 and change who are supporting us, because you can follow and you don't have to pay. That's why I really encourage people to check it out. And if you like it, consider paying.
Is she blaming me for the lack of subscribers? I can't see the rest of it.
No, it's not a blame. She's saying, will you be doing more exclusive streams like No Holds Barred with Nate, or Bourbon with Barnes, more free flow with questions for me and possibly you? We'd like to. It's so hard.
Didn't we do the St. Patrick's Day special yesterday?
Yeah. But, just stuff that were, this show right now actually could be on Locals. And we talked about doing it on Locals just for that purpose. We're trying to make it as wide as possible, and future ones like this may be on Locals, to pay back, because people are directly supporting us there, and we do acknowledge that, and thank you very much. Let me see. Okay. Questions that I can't answer. What temp does steel melt? Follow up. What temp does jet fuel burn? I'll say hot, extremely hot, and not as hot.
I think what, if I could read between the tea leaves, what Greg is referring
9/11
to,
and
he's obviously referring to Building 7 being pulled down, and Building 7 never hit by jet fuel, never hit by a jet. You have to know the layout down there, see how far Building 7 is from the other buildings to realize what a crock of shit this is about Building 7. Whatever you want to say about the World Trade Towers going down from jets or jet fuel, the reality of the story is, in my opinion, from what I investigated, was the bases of Building 7 and the others were mined and put with thermite at the base. And Building 7 comes down because of thermite at the base. The thermite at the base, the reason that's not a conspiracy theory is that the blind sheik had done that 8 years before in the same building with thermite at the base. So I think the government didn't want to give them any credit where credit was due. I think thermite was used in the other two buildings, and clearly clearly in Building 7, because there's no other reason for the collapse of Building 7 other than thermite at the base. So I hope that's what Greg was talking about. If not, I assume there's something else.
All right, so we're late in it. So, okay, the question here. This one probably I can answer. I found you guys through Barnes. How did you two first get together, and how do we know Barnes? It's actually backward. I know David or Viva from before Barnes, and I knew him a little bit before he met Barnes. He actually covered Barnes doing the Alex Jones deposition, and I had David on my podcast, discovered him at the time, and then he said, I got with this guy Barnes, and they did some interviews. They didn't become a show together immediately. It's kind of like with Mark and I mean, I interviewed Mark, and Mark was a follower fan of Viva and Barnes, and and because I have David online or whatever, for whatever reason, I think Mark is following me on Twitter, and then he'd said some comments, and I was kind of like, who's this guy? Looked up, saw there's a book, checked out an interview, and then we just got chatting back and forth, had a couple of phone calls. It's really interesting, and we put out. I first interviewed him, and then Mark is like, hey, I've got all this stuff that I've been doing like my life, and I didn't know the extent of it, but he was like, let's talk about it. I brought him on, and so we were like, maybe once a month or so, every couple months, we could just do a show together, talking about this stuff. And over time, he was like, you know what? I need to get this stuff done before I die, so we need to do this, step it up a bit.
Wait, so how did Barnes come into this thing?
Well, Barnes, I already knew because of David, and so then I automatically knew his guest. I had Barnes on my show, and so then I had them both. That's probably how you discover me. Actually, come to think of it, I had Viva and Barnes on my show a bunch, with the behavior panel folks and individually. And
okay, are we going to do the show with them next week or no?
Well, I can't speak for them, and I don't know. I don't know, the scheduling on that. I've put out the questions.
The Barnes guy here, he'd like to see the four of us together again, like we did a couple months ago.
Oh, I'm sure. It depends,
All right.
Let me see.
Put it out in the universe. Put it out in the universe.
Oh yeah, of course. Will we ever do an episode on actors who have been blacklisted by the new China Hollywood?
Yeah, I would like to do that. As a matter of fact, that's a good one, Mark. What's his name is blacklisted? The guy who
Star Wars dude, right?
Richard Gere.
Oh, he is. Oh,
that's right. I like to do an episode on that. I mean, the whole China thing is fascinating because I wanted to do an episode around China's censorship of American film, because the same thing happened with the Nazis with Hollywood in the 30s, and Hollywood censored and did stuff to our films the same way the Chinese are doing now. So I wanted to do the episode to show the similarity between the Nazi regime doing it and the Chinese doing it. And obviously the complicity of Hollywood in actually doing it. There's, to extrapolate a little bit further out about Mark's question, there's, if you see the movie Iron Man 3 in China, it has an entirely different third act that the Chinese shot on their own, and the DGA is complicit in allowing it to happen. And, they directed a third act of Iron Man 3. I can't express that enough, but we'll get into it
they also changed the ethnicity of a type in a movie too, and then decided to scrap the movie anyway.
Right, we'll get into that in the story, but I'm saying it's not slight edits anymore. It is entire films that they're altering, shooting with separate crews, sets, guys in Iron Man costumes, that you're assuming is Robert Downey Jr. It's not the Chinese actor in there. You know what I mean? But the whole movie goes in another direction, the Chinese version. Obviously, nobody in America is ever going to see it, but 2 billion Chinese have seen whatever that movie is. I don't really know how that ends. I know how Iron Man 3 ends, with Shane Black's direction, but it's unusual. Let me put it that way. It's unusual, but not unique, because the Nazis did the same thing to us with our complicity.
All right. And let's see. Thank you for the super chat. Thingamageorge. He's wanting to throw us some Santa Fe train ticket money.
Right on.
Okay.
We'll get the whole band on the train. We'll play on the train.
There you go. He'll be busking. Mark's gonna have to pay my way. I don't have talent, so I'll just be like standing over there trying to hustle and whatever. He'll be busking. With Juicy Smollet's post-sentencing diatribe in mind, what are the most infamous historical possible examples of someone being Epstein/suicided? I'll give you one. I actually interviewed the guy, John McAfee.
Oh, McAfee was a good one. Yeah.
That's probably the biggest one outside of Epstein. And he even tattooed his arm saying whacked and pointed it out and said, if anything happens to me, read this. And by the way, the Spain has not released his body to his widow yet. Still.
That's nice. That's another statement. I mean, these things didn't happen in the old days. I mean, I went into like protection.
Thank you, Anthony.
Anthony.
And okay,
he was legitimately worried. I guess he went to the psychiatric unit, Smollett, right?
Oh, God. Yeah, and he was supposedly not tied to the bed. I don't know. You kind of knew going in that it was just going to be a
shit show. Yeah.
Okay. JM, burning jet fuel makes a quantifiable amount of heat and not a specific temperature. Build heat faster than you can cool, and any temp is possible. Awesome. Thank you. I don't know this. I'm not an engineer.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, thermite cooks too, brother. Thermite melts girders.
Okay. Oh, here we go. I will send Ricada a super chat to ask to get you on the show. Please offer as well. He always drags his feet in getting any new good guests on. Breaded.
Go Breaded.
In fairness, I have been on personally. I've been on Nick's channel. And he actually invited me on last night. I had already gone to bed, and I saw the invite this morning. So Nick's an amazing guy. And I would not I think it's very possible. If I reach out and ask it, it's very possible. We've been on with Nick before on my channel. Nick Ricada. Yeah, you've been with the Copyright Troll. Remember Ricada?
Copyright Troll. Oh, no. I know who the guy is. I just don't remember us.
Well, we were on at the same time.
Everybody, like 20 guys. Was that the show?
Well, I don't. It's 20 guys, but yeah,
there was a lot of people. There was one episode we did with Viva where it was like 8 lawyers or something, and Joe was on.
Yeah, that was on Viva and Barnes,
right?
And it had No, this was when you and I were talking about the Copyright Troll.
Oh, right.
Emily Baker and Nick Ricada.
Right, he came on the show. Right, I remember that.
Yeah, I mean he's a friend. And he came on, he was helping us out. So that's a good idea. I'll have to remember. And please ask him. I need to remember to ask him as well. It's trickier with him because his show starts at midnight my time.
Oh, weird.
And 9 p.m. your time. So I'm not sure. And he goes for 3 to 4 hours.
What is he on? Is he on the stuff?
No, he is literally like a late night DJ in a sense that he does it. This is his job. So he puts in hours and he goes at night. Okay. I'm going to start cherry picking because we're already past time here. Jussie Smollett and his attacker, if they're invited to meet us, they have free time now. Funny.
Well, the 2 Nigerian brothers were working as extras on that show. And,
they were his training him and whatever.
They wanted to be actors, on the show. So I don't know what happened to their careers. All right,
let me see. Have we considered doing a story on Lucky Luciano and Meyer Lansky? It's not Untold.
Yeah, it's not Untold. Yeah, that's a weird one. There's some gangsters I'd like to do stories on. It's not those 2, but I don't want to give it away. But there's a couple that I have in mind that I have some research on LA gangsters that I'll talk to Eric about at some point that I think have not been told as well as those. I mean, there's 8 million documentaries on both those cats. I'm trying to do stuff on more of untold stuff.
All right. Tyler's Durden is a stupid name. I kind of agree with this. Baldwin is kind of boring. Let's talk about drugs and mobsters.
I agree with you. I agree with you, bro. I'm all down for that, brother.
We try, but
Gangs
you
of
know what
mobsters.
happens? We have a lot of people who
Gangs of
say,
mobsters.
Baldwin. I mean, we try and we're like, hey, how about this really cool story about the women in the Civil War who dressed as men and they kicked ass? And
Well, the guy I'd
no,
like to do the story on to answer Tyler's question is, of course, Mickey Cohen. And Mickey Cohen's got a fascinating relationship with Candy Barr and how they couldn't kill Mickey Cohen. They finally, at one point, they blew up his house in Brentwood, and they missed him then. And we'll get into it with Mickey Cohen. I'm gonna put, that's my one gangster that I love a lot is Mickey Cohen.
okay,
And he's a Jew.
oh, there you go. I would be interested in learning what you know about the different production companies that are working in China and even specific U.S. political. Well, that would probably. I put it down. Look, that is how the list comes out. I already put down as an item Chinese censorship and blacklisting. So that one we'll see what we come up with. It may actually be a 2 or 3 episode deal.
The Red Dawn remake is really something you may want to look at.
Yeah. That'll be part of it.
And they used North Korean soldiers, and at first there were Chinese soldiers in Red Dawn, and the Chinese said, you're never going to get into this market again with that movie unless you change the soldiers. So they changed everything. They went back, reshot the entire movie with North Korean soldiers, changing all the insignias, all the uniforms, the language, every single thing. And it cost millions of dollars to get into the Chinese market. And the Chinese said, thanks a lot. We were just fucking with it. And they didn't let it in.
Which I actually kind of love.
Right.
All right. Here we go. I'm going to close on this one and then we'll go out. I know Mark will love this. Tell us about Dr. Mary's monkey.
Well, it's going to involve the phony girlfriend of Oswald, so it's dicey what's factual in there and what's not factual in there. Alton Oxner was working on a cure with this woman, not a cure, a cancer injection to kill Castro out of New Orleans, and her place burned up with her in it. I mean, there's a lot of weird angles to this story, so it would take me a long time to slice and dice. The book is well worth reading, Dr. Mary's Monkey, if you want to read the book. It's pretty involved, and anything about that is interesting. The book's very interesting. However, the ancillary part I'm not really interested in, which is Judith Vary Baker, the phony girlfriend of Oswald. So anything related to that, she's already been disproven as a fraud. So you gotta pick you gotta slice and dice what you're looking at here. There's facts in all of this stuff that if you could pull out the facts, it's well worth it. And there are many facts in Dr. Mary's Monkey that are worth it.
All right, perfect. So I hope everybody's enjoyed this, and we do want to do more of these, especially, I mean, we cover so much stuff, and if people know ahead of time, they can come up with questions that they have for an episode. Or another thing we might consider doing is going through comments, like maybe saving comments that we're seeing that are standing out to us and doing it on locals. I think that was a valid point. I'd like to do more on locals. We will, of course, respond to, demand, of course. So the more of you that are on locals, and the more, it does, put pressure on us that we want to earn your support, and we do deeply, deeply appreciate it. So unstructured.locals.com, of course. And there's other ways to support us, like directly. Mark, do you have like a PayPal or anything?
Well, I just found this old issue of Lampoon that I was in the garage, and I brought it out here. I thought somebody may want to.
All right.
Sorry about killing the dog, but
Mark, how fast do you read a book, and do you ever do audiobooks?
I do audiobooks if it's impossible to read the book. I'd rather read the book simply because the audiobooks, it's the same thing with Kindle. They don't have the documents in the book and the photos. That's the problem with audiobooks and Kindle books. I need the photos and the docs and the footnotes, which are hard to access through audiobooks. Audiobooks I'll do if it's some fun book, like what's her name? The woman who was in The Sex Cult, to the actress who went after the Hollywood producer who's in jail now.
Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein, the actress who went after him had a wonderful audio book. It was her book. I forget her name. Yeah, she wrote a memoir about it. She was in a sex cult. The children.
Yeah. Short-haired.
Yeah. So her book was her reading her book. It was just wonderful on CD to listen to her read her own book. But that's just a memoir without any kind of footnotes or dots. So,
Oh, I got to bring this one up. No. Wait. Sorry. Do I get it? Hold on. You don't get everyone on Locals for one price. The chat started moving, so I hit the wrong thing.
Okay. What is that about?
Eric, write this down. Mark and Joe Neerman debate. No. Oh my God, my head would hurt. Okay. Oh, just the Joe side alone. I know that's exactly it. It's like what about? And Rose McGowan. Thank you.
Oh, Rose McGowan. Yeah, thank you.
I hadn't read her book, so it is worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great audio book. I mean, if you like audio books, it's her memoir.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, that's how I read.
Her relationship with Marilyn Manson, for instance, who she later threw under the bus. I mean, how she was going to marry Marilyn Manson, but either she or he went to rehab. I forget which one. Just about when they were about to get married, one of the two of them went to rehab. I forget. But it's chock full of Hollywood, extravaganzas in the book.
All right.
And she's reading it, so it's personal. So I 2 thumbs up for Rose McGowan's memoir on audio CD.
Cool.
Now, what about the merch? How do these people buy merch?
Right down below. There's a link, and people have been buying it. A couple T-shirts went out, a couple cups. And by the way, those of you who are watching, if you bought merch, please, unless you're uncomfortable with it, send a picture if you're wearing it, or up in your environment. I mean, we would love to see that. I definitely have it on Locals. And
even if you're in prison, you could wear it in prison, right?
Oh no, that's good. You would get different angles, background, lighting.
You can wear it in school. They don't even know what the hell it's about. They think it's probably some,
I know they would say, wait. We don't teach history here. What are you talking about?
Wait a minute. It's a lot of people say the same question. How come I didn't learn this in school? You know what I mean? And there's a reason why these are untold stories. I mean, if you listen to the complexity of some of these stories, you'll begin to realize the web that they're not simple, and the school tries to simplify it, like we did last week with Jack Ruby. If you look at Wikipedia, this is a nightclub owner got mad and shot the killer of the president. And I couldn't even fit in the amount of information we had on Jack Ruby last week. So we're going to do Smedley Butler on Tuesday, the Brigadier General, 2-time Congressional Medal of Honor winner. I don't want to give away the subject of the show, but this is another American untold story that has been on my radar for a long time. They're all there. It's just a question of order of getting to them. You know what I mean? We're not doing a show 5 times a week, so so it's hard to get to them all. And once or twice a week is going to take longer, unfortunately, unless we go to 3 days a week, which maybe
we don't have time to prep. So it's kind of a moot point, and that's part of the reason for sort of the fun Fridays and whatever. It's just the amount of work is ludicrous, and I still have a day job. There are other factors involved.
I'm a sex trafficker, so I have to focus on that.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's still trying to get the women from Ukraine to come in on.
I have an open door policy. I don't know if you're in Poland right now, but if you can get here, I'll pick you up at LAX. Apparently, there's only been 7 Ukrainians who have been allowed as refugees here. Did you see that story yesterday?
No, I haven't. No.
He was complaining that Biden has only allowed literally 7 Ukrainians to come into the United States. But at the same time, 7 million others came in through the back door down in Mexico. So it wasn't like we have a shortage of refugees, but only 7 have, as of yesterday, been allowed into the United States. So
somehow I'm not surprised, but whatever. There's the narrative, there's reality. They never quite seem to match. But that's half of what the show's about. So, folks, until Tuesday when we talk about Smedley Butler, come see us on Locals. Comment down below what you think, and please save the dog. Please save the dog.